Okay, wow. I am glad I waited until after the E3 conferences to finally make the video saying about the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And my God, Sony blew them out of the water. This is not looking good now for for Microsoft in general. They've got some real structural issues at the company there because they've had a mess up with the Microsoft Windows 8, and now it looks like they have equally bad decisions they've made with the Xbox One, which again is this is a stupid name. First off, that is a horrible marketing gimmick that I don't get what they're trying to accomplish because people immediately start calling bullshit on it, and it exposes the artifice of the marketing gimmick. What I'm referring to is this started in the entertainment industry somewhere along the lines where I think it was really Rambo when they called the fourth Rambo movie Rambo. And I think they're under the impression that it tricks people into forgetting it's a sequel, but the people who want to buy this are people that are fans of the series. I don't know, it calls artifice, people call bullshit on it all the time, and it's just a bad move for them to make it like that. It could have gone... In retrospect, 720 wasn't as bad as his name as we thought it was. They could have done anything. Xbox Neo. There we go, something like that. You could have came up with anything. I want to know what the names they rejected then were for this. It's just such a bad name. I gotta imagine that's gotta be a compromised name. But they did it. They released, of course, they had the very messed up. They're constantly kind of not backtracking on, of course, what everyone's calling. It's DRM. They can try to make up any little excuse how it's not DRM. It's DRM. Let me get this into perspective. I was won over with the first Xbox. In that generation of gaming, what's that? I forget what the generation numbers are off the top of my head, but started off, going way back, got the NES back when I was like preschool age, not even kidding there. It's like the year before I was in kindergarten, but parents got the NES, the Super Nintendo. Then we switched over to PlayStation. Not because of our choice. Our parents, my dad in particular, where he was working, they were selling those like special packages that only like certain places got. Because he was an optician, so he works at for whatever reason, the place he was working put their optical department right next to their electronics department. So every day he was going in, and they were selling these like special PS packets. And so like when it gets holiday season, he's like, I'm just gonna buy this for the kids. Won that, loved it. Loved PS1. Went on to the PS2, and then about midway through the PS2 life cycle, I decided to go out and buy a used Xbox. First console I've actually bought with my own money. And the main reason was the hard drive. Those memory cards were a bitch. And I would buy ironically enough, a lot of used games for the Xbox because I didn't have to worry about the memory. I didn't have to worry about filling up a card and having to go out and buy another one. It was just basically essentially infinite space. And thus I stuck with it for the Xbox 360. And sorry, I'm going back to Microsoft. I'm going back to the PlayStation. Sony has won me over completely with the BS that Microsoft is trying to push on you. The always connected, which are now backtracking. Not instead of saying is always connected, you have to connect once a day, which is annoying for a couple reasons. One, I guess there must be some sort of mechanism for if there's a power outage or something, but, I don't feel like turning on my fucking Xbox every single day, because you know what? I work for a living. I have a job. That means a lot of days I don't turn on the Xbox at all, because my schedule does not allow it. I don't have that, if I want to play a game, I want to sit down for have a good 2-hour time to play it. Or, sometimes, and especially a lot of times recently, I have other games I want to play for that day. I've only got my 2-hour window to play something. I'm going to play something on the PC because I feel like it. Or I'll pop in one of my old consoles. The other day I popped in, plugged in the old PS2 again as I was playing Vice City. So that's just annoying. And to make it either always on, which you're going to have to do, or have to try to connect it once a day. Freaking annoying, especially if you have a setup like me where I plug, basically because my computer has a built-in wireless on its motherboard. When I do decide to play online with the Xbox, I unplug the Ethernet in the back because the computer will still run, and then plug that wire into the Xbox. Now you want me to go get a splitter. You might say, oh, that's just my circumstance, but that's just one circumstance that they did not consider. How many other people have really crappy internet connections where they're at? How many people are still paying per byte? If you're in Canada, this thing's going to eat up so much of your data. For the rest of my American friends here, or my fellow Americans, I should say, the rest of the world basically still pays how we used to pay with AOL. Not with the time thing, but at least like you have a set amount of data, like your phone. Unless you've got, was it Sprint? So, for something to be always on, it's going to be a bitch for your data plan. It's just going to be another thing eating it up. And possibly kicking you over that little, that little thing at the end of the month that you get socked with fees with. So, and you know what? Unless you have a high fiber or a good fiber optic network. I'm in New Jersey. We got Fios really early actually where I'm at. I have Verizon Fios. I got relatives down in Tennessee. Not like really real far out in the middle of nowhere. About an hour's drive outside of Nashville. Fairly rural place. They don't have high speed internet. In fact, 30% of the entire country of the United States does not have access. Like, they don't have the option to even buy high-speed internet. And here's the thing. You go, well, there's really rural, they want to game. No, these guys actually do game. You want to know why? Because they're out in the middle of freaking nowhere. There is nothing else to do. Especially if you're like, I got other relatives that are out near Scranton. Wintertime, there is nothing to do out there. It gets dark early. There's tons of snow all over the place. It's cold. You ain't going outside. Because it stays in, pops in his games, has some fun. Great way to pass the time in the winter. But it's really hard for people out there to then get the high-speed internet when it's not even an option for them. And there's not so much new fiber being laid out, really. It's not like the old days where they put too much out there. So that's BS right there. And then the whole system is just really designed for DRM. They're trying to make the streaming in the background, which is like so they can download stuff in the background, BS. And if I need something done overnight, just like on Steam, I'll let it download as I sleep. When I need it, if it prompts me. That's assuming it needs it. Then they have their used game thing, where they try to get around. It's not that we're banning used game, and it's that there's a fee. Now they're trying to argue that it's not a fee for them, and I'll explain how this little shell game works here. They're putting it on the developers because they know the developers are greedy. So they say, well, it's developers charging it. So the developer, of course, or I should say the publisher. So of course, most of the publishers are going to actually take advantage of this system and going, yes, if you can sell it back to GameStop, which, by the way, now that there's this, you can sell it back to GameStop and they can resell it to someone, but to activate it on your account, I guess there's an individual number per disc, it reads. You will lose it on your account. Fine, you're sold it. So it's like getting rid of the disc. And it gets uploaded, and then the other person will have to pay a fee for it to get activated on theirs. Here's where there's bullshit with that, and they're trying to argue, well, it's the publisher gets the fee and it charges the fee. We just provide we just have that as an option they can do. They know by greed that they're going to do the do that fee, and the fee's going to basically make it not worth it to buy a used one. You're not going to get as much money turning it in, because in order to sell it for a reasonable price, GameStop's going to have to, of course, they're going to offer less money for it, so that when they do sell it, they can make more. They will actually just be maintaining the old profit. So they want you to buy a new game. Here's the thing, though: Microsoft does get a small slice of every new game sale. So anything that actually promotes more new game sales, like this DRM that they're having them impose, they get more money from. See how it's kind of very sleight of hand there? And they're trying to make this BS excuse, and the way they've done it was just been so confusing. PlayStation, on the other hand, at this conference, really basically just said a fuck you to Microsoft. Really, they went on. This went on, and he knew, the CEO there, he knew that he had the audience when he went through that, where he was just going, this boom, flat out, no new games. Basically, put the big guarantee of what they're. No fees on that. You can do anything. You are entitled for it to life. You have the right to give it to friends to borrow. They went through every line that everyone's been talking about on forums, on more of the independent game media sites, on just people bitching on YouTube. They hit those points, they reiterated them, and they told everyone, yes, you can do that. And right there, that audience went crazy. Microsoft, and here's the thing I've been getting from several of reports from YouTube, not from YouTube, but from people that were there. I think Angry Joe is one. There's a couple others that basically Microsoft kind of packed their own people into those conferences so that they would applaud at the right stuff. That applause, at cheering, people got out of their seats for that when they announced that. This got up, cheered along. This amazing. They sold it. And that's the media right there. That's the actual gaming media. They have a real now. If those guys, if they have a bias now, it's going to be to that PlayStation. Even if their company doesn't want a bias, they have got a bias for it. Not that a lot of the more mainstream stuff actually has, I don't think, as much influence on the purchase as people think. People kind of just go to their sites to see the exclusive, and then when they want the actual reviews, they tend to go to something else. Sorry about that, a little thirsty. They, of course, also announced no major changes with their Google Plus. In fact, they did something great that Microsoft doesn't let you do, is if you still have a Google Plus account, not Google Plus, sorry, they use the same freaking name, though, basically, PlayStation Plus account, it's going to cost you the same amount of money. And if you buy a PS4, it isn't backwards compatible, no. But what they did do is you don't actually lose your account on the PlayStation 3. You can leave that PlayStation 3 plugged in, connected to the internet, and play your PlayStation 3 games there online. You don't lose that account. It's still good. This is probably a lot to do with the fact that Sony was aiming with that Vita, so their architecture for that account setup already had incorporated into it multiple devices to be attached at no charge. So that's really why this was really easy for them to add in. And so, of course, they're going to do it just for those people that aren't going for the PlayStation, or aren't going to go for the PS4. Maybe a few of them will go for the Xbox One, because they're just diehard Halo fans. They're still going to get their $5 a month, basically. I know it's a one-time fee. It's pretty reasonable compared to Microsoft's $15. Really? Come on. That's if you're paying the monthly. Let's see here. What else is there? So they blew it away, and then the big one, which I think is going to seal the deal for a lot of people financially. Xbox One announced, and you could tell they weren't happy about this price charge because they put it in the middle of the conference. Xbox is going for $499, $500. PlayStation, they knew they had this in the bag, so they put this as basically the last thing before they left. $399, $400, $100 difference. For a lot of people sitting on the fence, considering really that even most of the games that were being showed, you had Watch Dogs at both, um, Call of Duty, a lot of these games, they're on both systems. So for most people, if you're really on the fence, what are you going to go for? These are both going to be out probably about the same time. You're going to go with the cheaper one. And not only is we have to talk about design now, because they also revealed the design. PlayStation 1, or not, it's getting mixed up, it's getting late. Xbox One is just butt ugly. People have been saying it looks like a freaking VCR. It's big, it's boxy, and I know why. I know why it's that big and boxy. It's because it's a legacy of the Red Ring of Death issue. The problem they had last generation was there was a couple of things I heard from. One of the more common ones was soldering point, like the solders were getting heated up within the system because basically they used cheap solder, and so as it got heat, it would kind of start to liquefy. It would become malleable again, and you'd get stuff out of place. So it was a heating issue, really, that led to the problem with the PlayStation, the X360, Red Rings of Death. So by making that big, they're giving it more breathing room in there. That's my assumption. It could just be that Microsoft is not a hardware company. It doesn't have It doesn't have the hardware engineers. So it could be that the new technology they just could not condense, but I think a lot of it has to do with they made sure that the cooling system in there, it had room to breathe, that they would not overheat like it did last time. Sony, of course, is primarily a hardware company. They have literally armies of engineers to work on this stuff. So when Sony came out with theirs, it is small. This thing is slick. It looks like about the size of a PS2, a little bit bigger perhaps, but very small, very sleek. And you know what? They made it look kind of sexy. Instead of just being a big block like the Xbox One was, which is a shame because really Xbox has tried to find some innovative stuff to make their system look sexy. The first Xbox, they had that whole big design where the X is in there. They had the green right in the center to add us that color. Boom. Xbox 360, they had that kind of a sleek iPod-ness to it. Then they go with this bulky design. Very. PlayStation 1, it's angular. They basically, it's kind of a box. You can tell that's what they did. They basically designed the basic box, and they just then kind of put it on a slant. And that little detail actually does so much to add style to it. And it's designed to go vertical. So, which is probably another thing that they did, why the Xbox One looks as ugly as it is they wanted to make sure this thing would it goes back to the air cool issue. They probably optimized it so that it would get really cool sitting in that position. It's harder to do that when you have to go from vertical to horizontal, and you have to be prepared for the vent for both situations. That also for me right there, looking at my setup in my room, where I'm going to probably have this thing put, I can see right now, if I had the Xbox One, it'd be really annoying to fit in here. Because since it's not backwards compatible, I'm going to have the 360 still in here for when I want to play those games, because I freaking like Batman Arkham Asylum. I like to play that every now and then. As I said, I still play some of the older stuff. But that PS4, I can see exactly it's going to fit right nice and neat. And worst case scenario, both the 360 and the PS4 can go vertical. So it works for me, and I've already got the setup for having multiple stuff plugged into my TV. I have a little splitter. So it works for me perfect. And I guarantee it's going to work for a lot of people. Great. So I'm really happy about. I'm going back to PS4. Xbox is going to be, once my account on Xbox Live, which, by the way, they did a lot of bull. This is why when it comes to buying stuff online anymore, I probably won't even trust the PlayStation Store as much, even though they are saying that if you get the Plus membership, you're getting a bunch of indie games for free. That's kind of cool. Which, by the way, that's another thing. PlayStation actually put a lot of effort into getting that indie crowd in, or getting those indie publishers. Which, by the way, it's big. It's bigger than you think because you're getting the loyalty of the people making the games. You really want to go at those guys. These are the future big time publishers. These are guys who will rise up from this. Because as we saw with THQ, a lot of these companies do collapse. THQ used to be a monster in the industry, but basically business guys ruin this. I think that's what's happening with Microsoft. I think the business administrator type guys got too much into the industry and they forgot what they're selling. When you're selling Windows and Office, it's a commodity, and you understand what its value is. It's to enable other business. This is an entertainment industry. What you're selling at the end of the day is always fun. That is the commodity that you are selling. You are selling fun. You're not just selling the game. What you're really selling, what the value is the fun that game creates. Same thing with movies. You are selling the enjoyment, the fun, the emotional release of doing that. That's the value. But when you start cheapening this stuff, cutting it in, making this stuff very bland, jacking you left and right with little tiny fees and crap, you're removing the fun, and thus you remove the actual commodity that you're selling. It no longer has that. Yes, you have maybe a game structure, it functionally works, but you remove the funness from it. And therefore, that's what I want from it. It's like going to a hotel that advertises it has pools, and you go there and it doesn't have the water in the pool. You don't want this a big hole in the ground. Technically, that's what a pool is. It's the structure. But without the water in it, you want the experience of swimming. You're not going there just because you have a pool that has this lining and stuff in it. You're going there for the experience of swimming, without having to worry about all the crap that's associated with the ocean. A lot of times that's what's happening here. And that's why you see a lot of these companies fold up. And Microsoft, I think, is going down that path right now. I mean, who knows what's going on in the background? There's a lot of kind of weird, funky stuff that was happening. And I think, really, Sony played Microsoft. And they played them good. Sony got out the door. They did their initial announcement first. Plenty of space for the E3. Forced Sony to move theirs, or forced Microsoft to move theirs up, but they strategically did not make a mention on what they knew was going to be controversial. And I think PlayStation, or whatever department is actually running the PlayStation, when they first announced they had the technology for that online DRM to eliminate used games, they got a lot of flack really quick. And I think they picked up on that. I think they really listened and they realized, you know what? I think there's an opportunity if Microsoft goes with this, which they probably knew that they both were. If Microsoft goes with this, we can really get these guys are angry. They'll come back to us, and that's been Sony's main objective with the PS4 is they kind of lost the hardcore gamers. The hardcore gamers went over to the 360, and Sony really wants it back, and they really are going there to appeal to them, and that works. Big time. That's really important for the industry because, you know what, this is the type of industry where it doesn't matter how much ads you're pumping out, those hardcore gamers know to ignore them, have ignored them in the past. They know where to look. They want demos. They will know to wait, especially if it's being released in the holiday season. There's so many games coming out that they'll be playing another game before they go to buy something else. So they'll get the word. But here's the other thing. These are also the same guys that everyone knows someone that's kind of a hardcore gamer out there. If you yourself are playing some games more casually. If your buddy kind of tells you, oh man, don't get that piece of shit game. I'm just going to pick one. That random trying to think, but all the ones I'm thinking of are good. Transformers game. It's horrible, bad design. You can tell it's clergy. Oh, but I saw a trailer. They'll be the first ones to go. Oh yeah, but what did you see in that trailer? You just saw the cinematics. You know, the stuff they show between levels loading. They didn't show you how the game was played. It's bad. Your friend, if he's a friend that you know plays a lot of games, you tend to listen to him. So that hardcore audience is all. Oh, I almost forgot. The hardcore audience is also the ones that they're going to be the first ones out to buy this stuff. And when they tell their friends, oh yeah, I got the PS4, if their friend's considering to buy something, the fact that he's got a friend or a buddy that's playing the PlayStation 4, you know, if he gets a 360, he might not know anyone. Or, you know, they're the trendsetters for their groups. If they have groups that are, you know, friends that are outside hardcore gamers. So they really do set the trends with a lot of this stuff. So it's important for that, because a lot of everyone else will follow them. And when you get that install base, then the publishers, for maybe as much as you are publisher friendly, at the end of the day they need to sell product. And publishers will go to where there's a bigger audience. Really, EA kind of backed themselves into a corner of this because, you know, there's a trifecta going on here where if you break with one company, there's still two others. EA kind of said they're not developing for the Wii U, and I think this is what Sony realizes with the whole DRM thing, because they also announced they're no longer doing that, whatever that stupid thing was. I haven't been buying any EA games partially because of that. Where they're making you register, you know, if you bought a used game, you'd have to go on and do that. They probably thought this was going to happen. And they got the confirmation from PlayStation, or at least Xbox, that that's what they were doing. But what are they going to do? Not make for PlayStation? Especially if PlayStation has a larger audience? EA's got to maintain being the largest game company. You can't do that and just make for exclusive Xbox. And by the way, if you start doing that, Microsoft then can do whatever the fuck they want to you. So Sony's like, you're going to still make stuff for us. Don't tell me you're not. So it's a clear victory for the PS4. They got my money. The reaction from the audience, as you could tell, were so different. Not only that, but you could tell from this the presentation. PS4 presentation had gameplay. They were showing mostly gameplay. Xbox, a lot of it was cinematic stuff. I mean, it was everything. Oh, yeah, other thing. PS4, they're putting tons of color. I think it's finally gotten to a lot of the art designers out there that people want color, that they're sick and tired of the brown and gray crap. You saw a lot of bright colors, and I think this is a general mood that they're going, that the people have been criticizing them for a while now about the gray and the brown. And so they really seem to be flushing. They seem to be everyone's trying to make a point to put in bright colors somewhere. And I'm all for that. It makes everything look nice. And considering what we've been going through for the past couple of years, it makes, you know, it adds something different. Give us those nice bright colors back so it's not all dreary. Like Gears of War is responsible for that shit. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it go. I like a bright art style. Occasionally, yes, I want something grim and dark, but I don't want it all the time. You know, it's like rice pudding. I bring this up only because I had this today. I enjoy having me some rice pudding. You know, with the cinnamon, tastes great. If I had it every day, though, I would get bored of it really fast. It's not one of those things I can have all the time. Anyway, I've rambled on for almost a half hour about this. I'm sure I'm not the only one saying victory for Sony. But if for some reason I am in the minority, well, too bad. This is what my decision is. Leave me comments. What do you guys think? What are you guys going with? Think I'm wrong? You think I missed a point here? As for the individual games, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. Watch Dogs looks pretty damn good. Interested, but somewhat with the Call of Duty, and I will get into that where I think I've already done a video of why I think the Call of Duty franchise has fallen really far from its roots. If you want to know what I mean by that, check out that video, the Call of Duty franchise video, where I kind of go where, it started off doing one thing and now it's become the exact thing it was trying to be different from, to the point where it's really lost its original purpose and why it's even called Call of Duty. Anyway, that's my opinion. I'm going to probably be $400 poorer in a few months, so I better start saving now. Good thing I decided to pick up a second job for the summer. That's going to be, I guess, my PlayStation 4 fund. Signing off. See you guys around.